What up? Just finished my hike. There's a car over here. I don't know if you can see it. Doesn't really matter. But it was kind of a rough remember when. He's down here quite a bit. It's him and a girl in the car. They look like young 20s, mid 20s maybe. And they've got that waiting on the dealer look to them. They're both like on their phones, and I walk down and they're both kind of like wide-eyed. I'm like, hey, how's it going, boss? And he's like, oh, okay. And, they're down here quite a bit. They got a dog. They're living out of their car. It looks like they're waiting on the man or something. And it's like, just the look, the look that you see, that desperation, that drug addict, like, sucked in face. Everything looks kind of dingy. The skin looks ashen, not like, nice and ruddy like me, but like that gray kind of look. And, everything's kind of haphazard. A lot of times when they leave, there's trash all around where they were parked. There's a trash can right over there. So I usually pick it up, but it's just one of those remember whens, like I remember being that type of person. I mean, I wasn't homeless, but, waiting on the man, trying to kill time, having nowhere to go. The only money I had in my pocket was for the drugs that I was waiting on. The car's all jacked up, the exhaust is loud, there's rust all over it. One of the tires looks very low, probably a slow leak. Just like, not a good situation, right? Not the lifestyle that I want to lead, or that I want people that I care about to lead, especially my children. It's in a lot of ways, the world's a scary place. It's also a beautiful place, because the world is what you make of it, right? And you can hear them taking off. And like, I don't know, it's just such a miserable existence. And when I was in that, I'm coming up on 6 years this summer, but like, it just seemed like there's no way to escape it. I didn't want to be sick. I had responsibilities. I had a job. I had children. I was divorced, and like, I had to keep up appearances at certain times. I had to, I'd spend what I had to spend, just on groceries, and then everything else went to drugs. I'm balancing my bills, like, well, I'll pay most of my electric, part of my phone, and a little bit of my internet just to keep it from going down. And then, having to face the music when my kids come home and they're like, there's no heat, there's no hot water, there's no internet, and so you're just like plugging away. It's like a lot of addicts call it chipping, like when you're just doing enough to get by, and it was just such a harsh reality, a harsh existence, and stressful, very stressful. I mean, and that's one of the looks that they had, right? And like, the beautiful young girl with him, he's a good looking dude, but they just looked, rough, you know what I'm saying? And like, that lifestyle is so stressful on the soul, on the spirit, your mind state, your physical form, and I always thought I was fooling everybody, right? And I couldn't even fool myself for very long, and the most relief I ever got was like the first 20 minutes of that first knuckle bump of dope, And then after that, it was just all regrets. Why'd you spend that money? Oh, you could have toughed it out. You were 2.5 days into it. You could have detoxed or whatever it was, and then like the thoughts like, you could be doing so much better for your children, for yourself, for everything, your career, your business, whatever it is. And it was just such a hard existence. And I don't miss it, and seeing things like that. And like, sometimes I get down there and they're sleeping in the car and I'm like, fuck are they doing? Like, I got this attitude about it. And it's not because of them, right? Like, if anything, I have empathy towards them because I was in the same type of situation. But it's fear. It's fear of falling back into that type of lifestyle, the drug addiction, the whole, like, never ending hamster wheel of getting drugs, getting high, not having for other things, not being able to provide the way I want to be able to provide, not being the man that I knew that I could actually be, not living my life as a functional adult, even though I'm pretending over here, I'm a mess, and just the look in their eyes when I was like, hey, how you doing? Because I didn't want to be, I was like, hey, how's it going? What's up, boss? How you doing? And the girl's like, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. And who knows? They probably, because they weren't here when I got here a little while ago, and maybe they were I don't know, maybe I spooked them. I don't know. And then they see me getting on my phone, who knows what they think. But yeah, it was a terrible remember when, which is also a good remember when, right? Like, I don't like seeing anybody sick and suffering, but it makes me think like, wow, my life is freaking second to none. Even when I have little conflicts in my life, or, and because it's never anything major anymore, it's never much that, like, I really have to worry about, like, do I get a little stressed? Like, I gotta get braces for my son. My daughter's car is having issues, and that's the car that I picked out, a used car, of course, but, and yada, yada, yada. And, I gotta pay this person money that I borrowed, from them, and not borrowed, but, like, whatever. Like, it's, my ex-wife paid for these last repairs for my daughter's car. So, like, I got several $100s to kick in for that, right? Which, I need to get my teeth fixed. My son needs braces. My daughter's going off to college in August. It's like, boom, boom, boom. We got to feed, we got to buy food for the house. There's this, there's that, But those stresses, which to most people are just the normal everyday life. When you're a junkie, that shit is like, it's way up here and you're way down here, and none of it seems attainable because you're, what is it? Robbing Peter to pay Paul all the time. I'm balancing this and I'm balancing that and blah, 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 blah. So my stress level isn't anywhere near where it used to be. And, it's maybe I think about it sometimes a little too much. And then, I kind of laugh at myself and I'm like, all right, buddy, calm down. Everything's